Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today is my all-time very best farmhouse crafts that I have done here on my channel in over the last 3.5 years. I decided to put them all in one place so you can check them out. Let me know which one is your favorite. There are 35 crafts. Maybe some you've seen, maybe some you haven't. All right, let's get crafting. This DIY is going to be using this really colorful box. Now, my daughter thought this was the cutest thing ever, but that's not really the colors that I do here in my home. So I wanted to give it a farmhouse makeover. Now you can see that somebody was struggling with getting that sticker off, and using a heat gun, it just removes it so easily. I'm gonna go ahead and sand it all down, and then I took it outside to spray paint it a taupey gray color. And now I'm gonna come back in with some neutral browns, white, gray, and I'm going to give it a wood look by just dry brushing on different colors of brown and gray. I just keep playing with it until I get it to the look that I like, and I'm just heat drying as I go so that it's not too clumpy. And again, we're just dry brushing it on, so that means not putting a lot of paint on your brush and then just coming back in with different layers. Now I've pre-marked some holes, and I thought it would be really cute to add a little handle to the top of this. And I'm planning on using this to store remote controls in my front room. I love concealing remote controls. I don't like to see them sitting out all over the house. And so I love little containers like this, and it's really long, so it'll actually fit all of our controllers in it. Once I had my holes all drilled, I went ahead and added in the screws, made sure they were on there nice and tight, and I will link any of the hardware that you see me using here down below in my description box so you can check that out. It just came from Amazon. And then once it's all done, you're ready to use it to organize things in your home. Today we're going to take these painter sticks that I picked up from Home Depot. They have 10 in a pack. I think they're about $1.50 for the pack. I picked up two of those packs, and then one of these wood hearts from the Dollar Tree. You're going to open up those painter sticks, and you're going to lay out 13 of them together, just like I'm doing here. And this is because we want to create a big enough surface for our heart to be able to be placed on them to create a really pretty farmhouse Valentine's Day sign. Once you've got 13 of them in a row and you like how they're spaced out, so it has that shiplap feel to it, you're then going to take some more painter sticks, break them down so that they fit the length that you have, and you're going to just lay them on, again with the spacing that you like, and hot glue them into place. Once you've got those all hot glued into place, you're then going to flip it over on the other side and add some more to give it more sturdy support so that this doesn't break. I like to make sure that things are really, really strong whenever I use these. So you're going to see that I'm putting it on both sides, and then in a second you're going to see that I'm going to also use a staple gun to really make sure everything is all strong and in place and it doesn't break if you ever drop it. Now, I get asked all the time about my staple gun. I'm going to link it down below. I bought it from Amazon. I love this thing. It's great for your craft room if you just want to be able to staple something together really quickly. And I'll also link the staples. They come with different sizes, and how I get the right staple size, I just hold it up to the actual product just to make sure that it's the right size. Then I'm going to take some white paint and some water in a cup, and I'm just going to whitewash my really cute background for this project. I think it has a really great shiplap feel to it. So I'm going to come back in again with that black and brown wood stain, and then you're just going to go over your heart, the whole thing. Now you're going to see that when I was picking it up, I actually had a white painted thumb. You can see it right there on the heart. Sometimes that happens where you touch things, and it's okay. We're going to cover it up with a bow in a few seconds here on this project, but go ahead and go over the whole heart with that wood stain that we created. And then once you've got the sides all covered and the top all covered, you're going to let it sit over to the side and let it dry for a few moments. Now I wanted to create more of a distressed wood, beech wood look to it, so I'm going to take some light gray. This was a clay gray that I picked up from Walmart, and then you're just going to lightly dry brush all over it just to distress it a little bit more. So to support our heart in the middle, you're then going to take another one of these painter sticks. You're going to staple it down with some hot glue as well, and then you're going to put your heart right onto it. And I want to make sure that this really stays on well, so I'm going to put some hot glue first, and this heart is going to cover up those seams where we brought together those painter sticks. And then you're going to take your staple gun and you're going to staple it on the sides where your bow is going to be covering them up. So I'm using 3 staples on it, 1 in the center where that middle part is and 2 on the other side. And then this bow is going to go right on it so you don't even see those staples anymore, and it has a really pretty clean finished look. We are going to be using this stair spindle or stair rod, I don't know, I always call things so crazy here on my channel, and these wood rounds that you can get at the Dollar Tree. This DIY is going to be so easy and so quick that when you see how quick I make these candle stems, you're going to think, why do stores charge $30 to $40 for these? So here I am. I'm just going to take this and cut it in 2 places because we're going to be making 2 really beautiful farmhouse candle stems. All you need to do is cut them down to the desired length that you want, and then you're going to take a drill and you're going to pre-drill holes on both sides. This is going to allow you to be able to make sure the wood doesn't splinter, and it will also help you just kind of guide the screw in easier so that your candle stems don't end up wonky or crooked because we don't really want that when we're dealing with candles. I would also recommend that the non-lighting candles, the battery lit LED candles, are really pretty on these too. If you don't feel comfortable with putting an open flame on them, that's totally understandable. These are just so cute on a mantle. So now at this point, I'm going to also pre-drill holes into the wood rounds from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to go in with a bigger drill and I'm going to do a countersink hole. I'm going to go ahead and start drilling through the round first. Then you're going to see here, I'm going to take the bottom and I'm going to just line up that pre-drill hole that you saw earlier. I'm going to hold my hand back so it's not in place of getting hurt. And then I'm going to go ahead and just drill it all together. This is so easy to make, friends. And each candle stem cost me, I'm going to say $2.50 to make because each round was $1, and then the stem, the railing stem or spindle, that was $1 from my local refurbished store. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and just screw on all of the other tops and bottoms. I'm using a wood round at the top and the bottom because I thought that this just looks so chunky and really pretty. And then now I'm going to just take some white paint and just add a little bit to it. I actually like the wood color tone that was on the wood rounds from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to add some paint around it, not covering up the whole thing. And then because the spindle itself was already kind of an off-white pretty color, I'm just going to simply go in and just add a little bit of white paint so it looks, you know, distressed, farmhouse looking. And then that's pretty much it. You're ready to add your candles and display. This next DIY is super simple. I'm going to be taking one of these long signs from the Dollar Tree, some of these mini frames, and some knobs. Now I'm going to start by taking my heat gun and removing the sticker off of the back of the sign because it's already white, and that's going to save me a lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my picture frames where I want them to be, spacing them out nicely on this bar that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to take my drill and just drill holes right on the bar where I mark those spots. Once I've got all of that dust cleaned off, I then went ahead and took my drill and put in the knobs onto the sign. And then I just screwed them in nice and tight to make sure everything was on there securely. Once I was all done doing that, I went ahead and came back in and painted the knobs and added a little bit more white onto that sign. I ended up not painting the back on this one because, again, it was already so white and perfect and ready to go for what I was looking for. Then I took some photos, but honestly you can put whatever you want in this frame. You can spell the words home or love, whatever you want. But I wanted to do some family photos for mine. I went ahead and put them inside the frames, and then on the inside of the backer, I went ahead and glued a ribbon, put it all in there, fastened it all together, made sure the glue was holding that ribbon in place properly by gluing the ribbon to the frame. Once I was all done doing that and gluing that ribbon down and holding it in place, I went ahead and distressed my bar a little bit and hung up my pictures. My inspiration for this DIY came from Antique Farmhouse. I loved this metal scoop, but would never pay that much for a metal scoop. So I'm going to use some items from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to build our very own, showing all the steps on how I put this together. I'm going to take a leftover dowel stick that I had from the Dollar Tree from another project, and I'm going to take 2 of these long plaque signs from the Dollar Tree, as well as 4 or 5 of these long tongue depressor sticks that I get from Walmart. Then I'm going to cut down my dowel to 2 handles that I'm going to be using, because I'm going to be making 2 shovels for myself. And then once I sanded out the ends and it's nice and smooth, I went ahead and got the large tongue depressor sticks, and I'm going to simply sketch a curved end like the inspiration. It was rounded at the end. And I'm going to take my scissors and just simply cut that part off, and then make sure the other end is the right length of the plaque. Once I have that all settled, I went ahead and traced that another time for the opposite side. And since I'm making 2, I actually traced 4 of these. So I went ahead and repeated that, cut those ends off that I don't want or need. And then at that point I was ready to start assembling the sides. So I added a bead of glue, and then I took that siding and I lined it up, and I wanted to make sure there was a little bit overhang on the back, because we're going to sandwich on the back part, and I'm going to show you how to make it even stronger. Then on the inside I'm going to add some hot glue to strengthen it, to make sure that it's holding nice and tight. Then on the end I'm going to take another one of the sticks, and I'm going to make sure that it's going to be long enough to sandwich between the sides. I wanted to be able to make sure that it would fit in there, because I'm actually going to add another piece to the back to strengthen it. This sandwiching it in is really going to allow this to become a lot stronger and to hold in place. So once I had that part in there, I went ahead and traced another one, and I'm going to put that on the back. But before I did that, I added in some more hot glue in those corners to really strengthen it. And then at that point I took another one and cut it longer to fit all the way across the whole back. So it's going to come all the way past that part where I sandwiched the one in between. It's just a hair longer than the other one. And then I'm going to bring it nice and tight as I can together to make sure the seam is very minimal. At this point, this thing is so sturdy on the back side that if you pick it up with the handle, there's not going to be any problems, and it really was brought together nicely. Now we're going to go ahead and put the handle on our little scoop shovel. I'm going to actually drill a hole. This doesn't have this in the inspiration. I thought it would be cool to drill a hole in it, because then you can hang these up on some type of a cute rack to display them. Or, I don't know, I just like the twine on the end. Personally, it's just my preference and style for this project. Then I'm going to use a smaller drill out a hole in the middle of it to get that for the screw that we're going to be using in just a second. I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile, just because I have this tool on hand and I don't want to cause any issues with these popsicle sticks. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my screw in and get it started. Then I'm going to take my dowel and screw that on just a little bit to get it going, and then drill down in there a little bit more. Now before I locked everything into place, I decided I wanted the handle to be even stronger, so I went ahead and also grabbed some of my wood glue, so that way I can kind of put that down in there a little bit to make sure it was really going to bond and glue and hold nicely to the shovel base. So you can see here that I'm just kind of twisting that little bit around, making sure the glue is all the way around it. and then I went ahead and screwed the last in to tighten the handle. At this point, we have created the official size and look of our inspiration, so now we can go ahead and start working on the color. I used a lot of brown, and then I added in some black, not too much of black. We want to still have the brown popping through. Painted that whole thing with a really dark brown color. Then I came back in with a light brown and dry brushed it to give it a little bit of a rusty textured look. And then I'm adding in a little bit of the white to dry brush on that. And then I just kind of roughed it up where I wanted it to, added back in some more texture until I was happy with the look. Now I'm going to go ahead and add on my twine. I just came through and did a simple knot. And at this point, I think it's a pretty good knockoff from what the inspiration was. And I made these so much more affordable than what the inspiration was from the store. Now I would not recommend scooping them with food, but definitely as home decor, mine was $2 versus $26. For this DIY, we are going to be using some of these glass jars. I picked them up at Target, but honestly, you can get these all over the place and lots of them at the Dollar Tree, and then some rope from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use 2 white nautical ropes and then 1 brown rope. So what I'm doing is I'm noticing that these need to be a certain length at the bottom, and I'm going to make a big oval shape because we're going to be making a glass jar basket to hold all of these in. I'm just going to continue to coil them around until I get to the end of that rope, and then I'm going to add on that second rope. I wanted to make sure that it's wide enough and that junction of those 2 ropes is at the bottom, and then I'm going to start coming and building up the side. Now I'm showing all the steps of this because I just want you to see exactly how I built it up the side where you can make your basket really strong. My biggest recommendation is make sure that you're massaging those ropes together every single time you put another bead of glue along that line. And then once you get those all going and you notice that it's getting stronger and stronger, this is the coolest thing. I'm going to actually put some handles on here without having to compromise the rope being cut. You can see that I pulled it out a little bit longer, and then I continued on my journey around. So now I've created 2 handles, and then where I stopped, I'm going to bring back in that darker rope, and I'm going to go around 2 more times, and it makes the coolest basket to be able to hold these glass jars. Now they sell these so expensively on sites like Pottery Barn. Friends, I made this for $3. Please know that you can have the most beautiful things in your home for hardly any money. Once the basket was all done, I added in my jars and whatever florals I wanted. For this project, you're going to need 9 of these boxes. I picked these all up from the Dollar Tree around Christmas time, but they definitely have them all year round. Then with a ruler, I'm going to be creating 2 angled lines and then a little bit of a lip on the box. This is going to be done on 3 of the boxes. Now you can see here I'm using my big scissors as I'm coming in along the side, but as I got to that corner, I realized a little pair of scissors were much better for that, so it didn't cause any of the box to rip. So just take your time when you're cutting around those corners and making sure that you're not forcing that cardboard because it will rip if you're not careful. So once I came up the side and I had that part all cut, I repeated that 2 more times for my other boxes. Then I took some hot glue and some E6000 because I really wanted it to hold well together because I want to keep this forever. I love this thing. I'm now going to just glue those together so it's a nice strong hold, and then I'm going to use some of these clips from the Dollar Tree. These are just the cutest and I find that they're so helpful in my craft room. Now I've got 3 at the top and I'm going to continue down with 3 more just regular boxes, not cut. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom and then do another row of 3. Once I had everything all glued nice and tight and firmly in place, I took it outside and gave it a nice coat of gray spray paint. Now we're going to be creating a galvanized look. It's really simple to do. You're just dabbling on paint on top of the gray spray paint that you originally had. I went from a dark to a medium to a light gray, and then very tiny bits here and there of white. We want the white to be that part where it just kind of shines when you look at that galvanized metal. And then I just use a paper towel and I just keep dabbing it around until I get the look that I like, but you want all of those colors to come through. Now I'm taking some long painter sticks and I'm cutting them down to the size that I need of the length of my container that I'm making here. And this inspiration came from one of my favorite online stores. I will link it down below. They most likely have sold out in this particular item, but I love these things. I feel like you can put so many fun things inside of them, and it's just so fun to be able to decorate on a shelf for a holiday. I think they're so cute. And the inspiration that it came from, it was so expensive. This, I'm seriously making it for maybe about $10, $11 versus the price that it is listed down below in my description box. Now I'm just simply adding some tags, screwing it in with an eyeglass screwer, and it's ready to be decorated. Our craft we're going to be doing is super easy and has hardly any supplies to it. We're going to be using these hanging racks from the Dollar Tree and these long painter sticks. And we're going to start by taking 4 of them, and where their necks are beveled in, you can see here, I'm putting them together with some hot glue and then my staple gun. Now I know not everyone has a staple gun. I'm going to link it down below. If I can promise you, this is something definitely worth investing in, and it's not that expensive for a craft tool, and you'll see me using it here all the time on my channel because painter sticks, you can do so many cool things with them. And plus I also like to use them for like reupholstering things when I pick them up from the thrift stores. Anyway, I'll link it down below if you're interested. If not, let's just keep moving forward, and you could always just do this all with hot glue and that will work as well. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take these hanging racks from the Dollar Tree, and they bend pretty easily. So I'm going to bend out the top part where you would hang this over a cabinet door or even a house door, and we're going to make them to be straight, except for there's going to be 4 of them. The one at the very top, because we don't want to see that long line, we're going to bend it over where we know that it's the same distance on both sides. Then I'm taking my miter box and my little hacksaw, and I'm cutting off that curved neck. And this is again a tool I use here all the time on my channel. I find it so versatile. If you already have other cutting tools, you can do that too. But I just love this little toolbox. I use it all the time here in my craft room. So I'm then taking those 4 long painter sticks, 4 more of them, and I'm going to cut off the neck part, the handle or the neck, whichever you want to call it, and I'm going to place them on those sides. Now this is really cool because we are creating a support system for all of these hooks to be able to go up on, and the next step is going to be even easier. Just wait, here it comes. Now we're using zip ties. So we're going to take these hanging racks that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to just zip tie them onto our frame, and it is so secure that there are no issues with these sliding around or moving. And you'll see at the end that I actually can display dishes on them. You can hang towels on them. It is such a great storage unit just because you can put so many things on it. You can hang mugs, whatever you would like. You can even hang jewelry on this, and the total cost for me to make it was $8.50 because I'm including in the spray paint that I used. I didn't use a whole can, and you can spray paint it whatever color you want, and you'll see at the end I spray painted mine black. So what I'm doing is I'm adding 3 zip ties on each the sides and the middle to make sure it's nice and secure and it doesn't move, and then I'm doing it up towards the top because you can see here that I didn't bend down the sides on these hanging racks. You can see that they're straight up. And once you spray paint it, everything all just looks so polished and finished when you're done. So here I am, I'm adding on my last 2 hanging hooks, and I'm making sure that everything is nice and secure and on there really tight. And when it's done, you just take a couple screws and hang this up somewhere in your home. For this DIY, we're going to be taking 6 of these super popular galvanized corrugated metal frames with clips on them, some painter sticks, and then some of these really large tongue depressor sticks that I get from Walmart. I'm going to take apart the frame, pop off the back, and then with my little eyeglass screw kit, I'm just going to take off that tiny little screw, and we're going to just save those because I'm sure on another day I'll find a use for these little clips. And then we're going to just glue everything back into place. And the part where I popped off the back, I'm putting that part inside the frame so that the back of this looks really nice and finished. Then I'm going to take 2 of them and glue those together on their sides. I'm making sure that the holes are going opposite direction. You can see right there. I wanted to make sure that they were going out so it didn't look like you have 2 random holes in the middle. And then I put 2 together the long way, 2 together the long way, and then I'm taking the 5th and the 6th frame, and that's going to become the sides of a darling crate with a handle that we're making. So we're just going to add some glue, and then we're going to come back in with our staple gun, and we're going to just secure it to make sure that everything is nice and snug and not going to come apart. I don't always just trust hot glue when it comes to certain things. I like to secure things because I don't want things to break and fall apart on me as I use them. When I make them, I want to make sure they last forever. Then on the inside, I'm going to take my painter stick, and I'm just going to add a whole bunch of hot glue in there, and I'm going to glue that right into place. And then I'm going to come back in with my staple gun and add a couple staples to make sure everything is nice and secure. Once I've got the 2 handles on, one on opposite side of each other on the shorter parts of this box, I'm going to cut off the top and the bottom of these long sticks that you can get from Walmart, and I'm going to make sure that the right length of the end of the box, and this is going to become the base of our box. Now I don't, again, just trust hot glue. I think that that can pop off really easily. So I'm going to come back in with my staple gun, and I'm just going to pop on 1 staple at each one of the sticks on the top and the bottom to make sure everything is nice and secure. And then at this point, we're going to go ahead and add on the handle. Now I have this dowel stick that I have in my craft room from the home improvement store, but you can honestly use a plunger stick for this. And I'm just going to cut it down with my miter box and my saw, and then I'm going to go ahead and screw that into place using my drill. I always like to pre-drill holes anytime I ever work with these painter sticks because they can splinter quite easily. So I always pre-drill the hole first to make sure things go through nice and smooth without having any problem, and then I just drill it all into place. And now at this point you can add whatever color paint you want to it, distress it, and it will look so adorable to use in your home for any season year round. This is another item that I see at thrift stores all the time, and everybody passes them up because they're outdated, and honestly it's just an item that people don't really put in their home anymore. So I had decided I'm going to try to give this a little facelift. Now keep in mind I got all of my items half off, so this was not $5.99, it was just $3. So I went ahead and spray painted it black, took a really pretty glass cloche jar that I got from IKEA, scrolled up some papers with some twine, and then added a wreath around it, and this makes a beautiful table centerpiece or something to put on your shelf in your home. It was a trash day in my neighborhood, and my adorable neighbor, she decided to craft and DIY her own shutters, and she took off her original shutters that were this really cute minty color, and I went and picked them up. I told her I have an idea for them. I'm planning on giving this back to her when I'm all done because she loves Farmhouse like I do. So I'm just marking out on this shutter where I want my holes to be, and then I'm taking these adorable gold baskets that all of us love from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just simply going to zip tie them right onto it. I thought the mint with the gold and black looked so cute, and just such a fun thing to be able to use for decor, whatever she decides to put inside of it. I just wanted her to see that, you know, since she was DIYing some new shutters, I thought, why not try to show her that, look, you can still use these. And I keep joking with her, she's got to start her own YouTube channel because she's so crafty out there with her power tools whenever I drive by. So once I've gotten my 5 trays or my 5 baskets glued on, I'm going to take these tacks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to use some E6000 to hold them in place so they don't pop out. And then I'm just going to take a Sharpie marker and color them black. And then using the cute, I love these stickers. Every time they ever in stock, I always pick some more up. And I'm just going to write the market on it. I thought that this would be so adorable. And then I Mod Podged it all down so that it stays in place. I have started collecting rolling pins. I don't know why I love them so much. I think it's just because they remind me of my mom and baking with her when I was little, but I have started collecting them, and I wanted to do something special with this one. So I'm taking some of my thicker painter's tape and I'm just cutting it down to size. Some of the thinner painter's tapes can be really expensive depending on what size you need because it's a customized shape, but really you can tape it to the table and just cut it down to the size that you need. Now I'm taking those thinner strips and I'm just going all over my rolling pin to create a really cute stripe on this. Now yes, this will not be able to be used to bake with anymore unless you were to go and seal the whole thing, but I'm not going to be using that. This is going to be strictly for decor because, like I said, I love to collect these and I just think that they're so cute all gathered together in some type of a crock or a basket. So I went ahead and spray painted it all white, and now I'm coming back in and I'm just sanding off anywhere where there's bleed spots, and then I'm going to just go around the whole thing and rough it up and make it look so farmhouse chic. I think these are so cute being gathered all together, and you can find these all over thrift stores and at garage sales all the time. People are always getting rid of these things and they just don't know what to do with them. But I think they look so cute all gathered together as a collection. For this DIY, we're going to be taking 3 of these long signs, some painter sticks, and 4 of these round balls that you can use as feet on a tray. Now I saw a tray inspiration on one of my favorite online sites that I shop from, and the tray was so expensive. I thought, no way, I can totally make that myself. So we're just gonna get our measurements. I'm lining up the sides of my tray box. I'm making sure I know. I forgot to mention I also used 2 of these big tag signs from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm sorry I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but I'm just measuring everything out where I need my side cuts of my tray box to be. I'm just cutting those down to size. I've got 2 of those. And then I'm just now going to be coming in and making sure I can strengthen it by cutting down some of these dowels. And I'm going to use that to bring the sides together and have it be nice and clean versus having a bunch of screws on the side of my tray box. I wanted to make it look as clean as possible. So it's a little tricky at this point because you have to figure out where you're going to put in these dowel sticks. This is probably not the most professional way to do it, but it's how I did it, and it's just kind of how I roll in my craft room. I'm always just kind of winging it because I like to try to push my boundaries of creativity. So I took that little dowel, tapped it in some green paint, touched it on the 2 sides as lined up as I could, and now I'm just drilling in some holes to match the size that I need for the dowels to go down in there. And then I'm coming in on the long part of the tray, and you can see here I'm doing it on the side versus the ends. Then I went ahead and I put in my little dowels that I cut down, adding in a whole bunch of hot glue within all of the holes, and then I'm just putting that down in here. And I'm gonna pull out my gingham hammer. Every time I get this out and I start pounding on it, it sounds like I'm working in Santa's workshop. It always makes me laugh. I just feel so professional with my little hammer. Then at this point, my box has been completely built by following that step all throughout all the sides. And now I'm going to measure out the bottom of my box, did a long line, and now I'm scoring it along and snapping it where I need to. Now these 2 signs are a little too long where they hang over the side of the box, so I had to take down the length of one of the long sides. So again, I'm just going to make a long line with my Sharpie marker, and then I'm going to score it and snap it. And you can see here how easy these snap. Sometimes it can be a little tricky when you get on an edge where there's not as much to grab onto, but I went ahead and just put on these once they were done being cut down to size with some hot glue, and I'm coming in with my staple gun to be able to staple it all in place. Now it's time to add on the feet of our tray, which is what we're going to be using these wood balls for. I lined them up where I wanted them to be, drilled a hole not too big because we want to be able to have the screw catch to it, but not where it's too small where it'll cause the sign to crack if you're not careful. So I went ahead and found the right screw and the right drill bit, and I'm just going to make sure my fingers are out of the way so that nothing comes through that wood ball, and I'm going to screw all 4 of those feet on. Now at this point you can go ahead and pick whatever color you want to paint it. I went with a pretty light gray color. I added on a handle and then did a little bit of distressing. This container has so much potential, it's just outdated. And whoever it was that got rid of this, I thought, oh, what a lost opportunity because these are so expensive. So I took it outside and gave it a nice taupey spray paint color as our base to get it started. And then I'm going to just come back in with some white paint, and I'm going to dry brush on with white paint all over to bring out that texture and to lighten it up some. I really love dry brushing with different colors, not just brown. I love to bring in whites or a blue or a green, and it really does just transform the item that you're working with. So you can see here at this point that I'm going over all of these little boxes, and I went all over the initial big tall container that the boxes go into. Then once it was all dry, I went ahead and took some hardware, these cute little tags, screwed them onto the front, and I thought, how cute would it be if I numbered these? So I'm adding in some cardstock that fits inside. I'm gluing it down into place so it stays in there, and then I'm just going to come in with some of these stickers. They actually had these at the Target dollar spot, so I picked some of these up. They were in the wedding section for this season, but you can use any stickers from the Dollar Tree, whatever you have on hand. And then I just added on 1 and 2. And now I'm going to come back on the bottom with some stacking blocks to add some height to it and to add some wood element to it. And then I glued it and stapled it in place. Now, cool enough, this staple gun that I have fit inside perfectly so I could get those back ones stapled in. Once it was all done, it's ready to be used somewhere in your home. I was online the other day and came across this darling dairy jug that was made so simply out of just wood pieces that I knew that I could replicate myself and save tons of money on. So I took some wood that I had on hand in my garage that was left over from when I tore down the wall between our kitchen and our living room. And first I sketched out a notch that I wanted for the sides of the jug, and then I cut them out with my jigsaw. Then using my larger saw, I took it over to the ends and cut off the size that I would need for it. I repeated this twice for the two outer sides of that jug, and then there's one straight cut in the middle. Now I'm going to be using a thinner piece of wood that I also had on hand that a friend gave to me when she was cleaning out her garage, and I'm just cutting those down to size to be able to wrap it 3 times around the jug. At the bottom, at the middle where the handles come down, and then at the very top. Now my inspiration didn't have it wrapped around the top, but I just liked it because it made it look more like a cap on the container, the milk jug. I just thought that that looked really cute, and to personalize it myself. Now it's really important to remember to always sand down things like this because there's always lots of splinters whenever you're working with wood. So I sanded everything down nice and smooth on the ends and those notches where I cut them out. And now I'm adding on some wood glue and some hot glue. These are going to be cased with those surroundings around them 3 times. So you don't need a lot of glue, just a little something to hold it together before you start nailing everything together. Then I'm going to go ahead and glue on those 2 smaller pieces on the sides first. And then I'm going to bring back on the long piece on the top. So again, the wood glue is going to really help it lock in, and then the hot glue is just going to hold it in place for a little bit of time while things dry and get settled. This is such an easy DIY. I could not believe that they wanted $70 for this. And at this point, basically everything is free because I'm just using wood that I had in my garage. I know a lot of us have wood like this, and a lot of us have these types of tools in our garage, so I just wanted everyone to see that with a little bit of creativity, you can make the cutest things ever. So then I went ahead and nailed it all in place around those holding brackets on it, and then I went outside, I spray painted a creamy ivory white, and then using a really brown, grayish, dark color, I don't know what color to call this, but it's kind of a gray and a brown combined, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint over all of those wrapped around brackets on the milk jug or the dairy jug. Now at this point I'm just going to take my smaller thin brush and some black paint after I sketched on what I wanted it to say, and I'm going off of the inspiration picture. So first I'm doing the really big words dairy, and then I'm gonna do certified fresh, and then at the very end down at the bottom you're gonna make sure you have enough spacing to be able to do these 3 rows and just have fun with this part. I say it all the time here on my channel, you don't have to have perfect handwriting. If you don't feel comfortable doing this with paint, you can always end up using vinyl cutting machines, but at the very end I did milk, cream, and butter and had stars in between them. After the paint was all really dried well, and I used my heat gun just to make sure that it was, I came in with my sanding block from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to simply sand the whole thing down. Now this is the one part where I actually spent money. I picked up one of these cutting mats from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to sand it down to make sure it's nice and textured on it so the paint will adhere to it. Once I sanded it on both sides, I went ahead and cut out 2 strips that were thick enough to resemble the handles on the jug, and then I took them outside and I spray painted them black, and now I'm coming back in with the same grayish brown color that I was using earlier to go around the jugs, and I added a little bit of white to it, and then I'm just going to nail that into place on the jug coming around the sides like the handles and the inspiration, and we have a completed finished project. I think this turned out so great, and for $2 I made it versus $70. I'm going to take this 6x6 plaque that you can pick up at the Dollar Tree. They have all sorts of these over in their framing section, and I'm going to cover it up with some paint to give it a chalk finished look. I'm just taking some white and some black paint, mixing it together to create a dark slate gray color. Then I'm going to just simply go over really quickly the whole thing, making sure that it's nice and covered. I'm not worrying about the inside. I do sometimes like to paint the inside, so just know that if you want that nice finished look on both sides, you can paint both sides. Then once you've got it all covered and it's drying over to the side, you're going to take some of these wildflowers that they have right now at the Dollar Tree. These are some of their new spring flowers that they're bringing out. I cut off all of the greenery stems, and this is how I create a cool vine from the Dollar Tree where you can get a nice look with this. I think this is the coolest technique to do this. I figured this out a couple days ago on a project. I love to just put some glue on the end and glue the petals onto each other, and it makes a nice long vine. Once you've got those glued together and they're off to the side drying, and you've made it as long as you want, you're then going to take a ruler, and again, if you have a silhouette, you can always cut these out on your silhouette, but I want everybody to see that you don't have to have one of those machines to be able to make a pretty sign. You're going to just simply take a ruler with a pencil, sketch on a saying or phrase that you like, or a quote, whatever it is, and then you're going to take a small tip brush and you're going to go over the letters and just take your time and have fun with it. I've had so many people asking me about how I hand paint my letters, and it just is something I've practiced for many years, and it's such a fun project to do when you're just sitting and watching TV to practice to get better and better at. And it really is the truth. The more you practice your hand painting with your letters, the better you will get. I think hand painted letters are so pretty, and it's such a personalized look and touch to your projects. So you can just see how I'm just taking my time here. I'm not rushing through it. And this is a great project. Like I said, put on a movie, put on some music, and just have a good time just painting them. And if you ever make a mistake, you can always add the same color back onto it, paint it, and then start all over again. So I highly recommend trying it and picking up this skill. It's such a fun thing if you don't have a cutting machine. Now, once that vine has been sitting for a little bit and it's nice and dry, we're then going to turn it into a little mini wreath. I like to use some hot glue on the leaves to pinch them together onto the vine pieces. Once you've got that, then you can wrap it and twirl it all around into a circle. And then take some ribbon from the Dollar Tree, loop it at the top, and then with some more hot glue, you're going to find your placing and put it right onto the top of your frame. You want it so that the little wreath is going to allow it to circle around your painting on the front of it with your phrase or your quote, and then just bring that ribbon up around the top and the back, and then make sure you hot glue everything into place so that it looks nice and finished. You don't see the top of the ribbon. Have it go back around the back side and glue it down. For my next look for less inspiration, I'm going to be using this beautiful basket stand from Antique Farmhouse, and we're going to do it for a whole lot cheaper, about 10 bucks to be exact. I'm going to be using 4 of these baskets, gold baskets from the Dollar Tree, and then 4 of these mop poles, and then a whole bunch of zip ties. We use a lot of zip ties in this project. Now, one of my favorite things to get off these stickers really easy is just using this heat gun that I have. I'll link it down below if you're looking for a good heat gun. I love this one. I use it all the time. I'm going to heat up the sticker and then it peels off with no issues at all. Then I'm going to take 2 of those broom poles, or mop poles, and I'm going to zip tie them up at the top of the basket. Now you're going to want to zip tie them as tight as you can and push down those little nubs when you've gotten it nice and tight. I would recommend, you can see me cutting them here, but I would recommend, as I moved on with the project, I decided not to cut the ties off anymore so I could try to tighten things as I was getting things to the very end. So you can see here that moving forward, I'm not going to be cutting off those ends, just so I can keep adjusting them if I can find more ways to tighten it. Then I'm going to turn it around once I had it on both sides of that basket at the middle point of the basket, and then I'm going to do it the very next basket at the very bottom so I can create the framing. I measured out how high I wanted it to be up, and I marked so it was the perfect spot across the whole pole system, because you don't want to have one that's crooked or a little bit lower, because then your basket would be crooked. So now I'm going to take my drill. This part is so easy, I promise, friends. You can have someone help you if you don't feel comfortable with the drill, and you're simply going to drill in 4 holes going all the way through the pole on the top side and on the inside, so that you get all the way through so you can use your zip ties. And now what we're going to do is we are going to take our basket, and this part's a little wobbly because you still haven't tightened everything all the way, and as you add on more basket, it starts getting stronger and stronger. So you can see here that I'm adding on my poles. Now a trick I learned is make sure you're coming on the side of the basket, not the inside of the basket. You can see that originally I was putting it on the longer part, and I decided, oh no, I need to put it on the actual ends of the basket so that the poles stay consistent in size all throughout, so you can get more baskets on it. Then I went and drilled out more holes where I wanted my next baskets to be, and then I just kept zip tying on more baskets. Now at this point, it's becoming stronger, but it's still not as strong as it could be. So I decided to add on another zip tie at the bottom part of the basket, and I'm going to zoom in just a second so you can see. But right here you can see that I'm coming down a little bit lower on that same joint where we put the first zip tie to hold the basket to the pole. I'm putting one down a little bit lower. But then I realized that the zip tie kept wanting to slide up, so I decided to take my pliers, and you can see if you bend it the wrong way, it'll still slide right off. I took my pliers and I bent out that wire just a little bit to create a little catch grip for the zip tie to be able to hold on to the basket. And then at this point, these baskets are on here so sturdy, and it really strengthened this whole basket tower organizer. Then at that point, I cut off all of the zip ties, and I took it outside and gave it a nice coat of white spray paint. Then I brought it back inside and I patched all of the holes and then painted over it. And then at this point, you can distress your basket however you would like. I decided to go really light on my distressing just because I didn't think that it needed too much, just for the look I was going for with my house and kind of going off the inspiration. But you could paint these baskets whatever color you want. Could you just imagine what you can do? Now, at the very end, I decided not to put the sign up at the top because I'm going to be using this probably in my bathroom to organize a bunch of toiletries. But friends, can you even get over the savings? This cost me about $10 to $11 because of all the zip ties, but I saved so much money and it looks identical to what the inspiration was. Our next DIY is going to be using this galvanized bucket and these florals that the Dollar Tree has out right now. They are meant for the fall time, but I thought they lend well for summer as well. So I thought they would be so cute paired up together. We're going to take off the handle from this bucket. Now beware, this handle can be a little bit of a beast because the wire is really, really strong. I like to hold on to those wires because I can use them for other projects. But I'm going to go ahead and remove it. You can decide to leave the handle on if you want to, but I personally wanted to remove it. So here I am. I'm going to take this brown paint and I'm going to just simply tap it up all along the edge because we're going to give this bucket a really pretty rusted look. I thought this was so cute for summer decor that lends well going into the fall time. Once you've tapped around your brown paint in all the desired areas that you like, you're then going to take a piece of foam square from the Dollar Tree and you're just going to hot glue that down in there, and then you can add in your florals. Now I'm cutting them away from their stem, the original stem that they come on. I never like putting them in like that because they look so fake, but when you cut them away with some wire cutters and place them down in there individually as sprigs, it looks so much more realistic and it looks high-end doing it this way. So I'm going to just fill in as many as I would like, and then I'm going to take one of these little garden sticks. I pick up a whole bunch of these little signs during the springtime and I just hold on to them all throughout the year because I love how they look when you put them on buckets or signs or just things. It's a cute little finishing touch. This DIY, at the end, you're going to see that you can take these cutting mats from the Dollar Tree and turn them into pretty much anything. I love these because they are a strong, sturdy material to work with, but you can also cut them. So I'm taking my ruler and I'm taking my cutting mats and I'm just cutting out a whole bunch of strips. I'm doing a bunch that are 2 inches thick and then a whole bunch that are 1 inch thick. I used 2 packs, so that's 4 mats because there's 2 mats in each pack that comes from the Dollar Tree. Once you've got everything all cut out and you have all your strips, I went ahead and took the smallest ones first and I'm just going to cross them over each other, and you can see here that I have 4 of them, and then I laid a cup on top of it and I creased the lines going up. This is because we are going to weave this into a basket. It is going to look like wood when we're all done, and it's going to look so cool, and you basically made this for about $1. So you can see here that I put the first bit of glue, then I went around one of those sides. I'm going to glue that in place, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm just going to weave. So I'm going to go in, out, in, out, in, out until I come all the way around to the beginning of that circle where I started. Then I'm going to glue it in place and cut it. After I got that first row done, I went ahead and moved up. So on the smaller basket, I'm going to have 4, I think maybe even 5. I can't remember, but I think it was about 4. And I'm just going to go all the way up, zigzagging back and forth until I get to the top. And then when I get to the top, I'm going to do something special here. I'm going to take those long pieces that I've been weaving back and forth on, and I'm going to fold one down, leave the other one straight up, and then fold the next one down, leave that one up, fold the next one down. And that's because we're going to come back in with a stapler and we are going to staple right on that part to make sure we lock everything in and it's not going to fall apart on you. And a regular stapler goes through it really easy. Then you're going to take your scissors and cut off those extra ones. I took mine outside and I gave it a nice coat of a tan spray paint color. Now you can see here on the bigger one I have the 2-inch strips and I only did 3 rows. And then I'm just coming in with a bunch of different colors of paint and I'm just adding that on until I get the desired look that I want. And then I'm going to take some of this white nautical rope, wrap it around the top, and you're ready to use these to display and organize things. We're going to be using these 2 different garden basket holders where you can put plants inside of them and hang them up on your porches outside or even inside. And we are going to be cutting away this middle ring that's holding all of the wires into the center to be able to hold flowers. That's because we're going to be turning this into a really cute Birdhouse cage. So once you go ahead and use your wire cutters and you snap away that wire circle in the middle, you're then going to straighten out your wires on your basket and make sure they are as straight as possible. Now here you see that it just snapped right where I'm putting my fingers. It is because that is the joint ring of this larger circle. Don't worry if that breaks. I'm going to show you how to fix it. No matter how many times I tried to straighten these up without breaking that part, it just naturally happened every single time. So I'm going to show you how to fix that in just a second. So once you've got your wires all cut off that circle, you're going to go ahead and straighten them out, like I said, as best you can. And then you're going to pull them back a little bit so that they're pulling away. They naturally want to curve in from them being molded that way at the store when they made it. Once you've got it all pulled out just like that, you then can take some twine and some hot glue, and you could probably use some E6000 too, but that's going to take longer to dry, so I don't think that's necessary. I'm just taking a little dab of hot glue, holding it in place to make sure it dries, and then I'm going to take some twine and you're just going to wrap it around that to make sure it's all nice and stuck together. You could use electrical tape if you have some of that, so that you don't have to worry about spray painting it, which is what I ended up doing. I wrapped this around it and then I spray painted it. And the thing is you can keep going all the way around and wrap this whole ring, but I decided just to do this one little spot and spray paint it. And once it's spray painted, you don't even notice it at all anymore that it snapped or had an issue at this joint. So once you've got it all wrapped around nice and tight, just make sure you have a nice finish and everything's laying flat. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pliers and you're going to create a little hook at the end of each one of these long wire pieces that we just straightened out the best we could. So here you are with your pliers, and you're going to work your way all the way around the whole circle. You don't want to have a super huge hook, and you want to make sure that the hooks are the same height all the way around, because otherwise when you go to attach it to the part that you didn't cut, the one over there to my left, you're going to see that the birdcage could be crooked. So make sure all your hooks are the same height all the way around. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just take that other part, the one that you didn't cut, the other basket, and you're going to hook them inside all the way at the same line, that same joint. You can see how my lines of the wires are matching up with each other. And then you're going to take your pliers again and you're going to bend them down and pinch them all into place. Now the cool thing about this project is that each one of these baskets is $1. It comes with this really cool chain that you can use for another DIY and repurpose it later. But it costs $1, and to make one bird cage, it's really only $2 and maybe 50 cents, because you're going to see some things I'm going to put towards the top to make it look like it's a bird cage with a little handle at the top. But this is like the easiest project. How pretty could these be at like a wedding reception? How pretty could this be decorated for any season in your home? And I'm really excited because I think I have some ideas for this for Halloween, to do some things with this craft and this idea. Once you have all the wires all tightened in place, and you want to make them as tight as possible, you're then going to take this flat part that comes from those caps from those glass jars. You can get them from mason jars or the Dollar Tree caps that they have as well. And then you're going to put that on the top, and you're going to use a combination of E6000 that's going to seal it long term, and then hot glue to hold it in place while the E6000 is drying. I like to make sure that I went all around on every single one of those little bumps to really make sure that it was nice and sealed onto it, so it really had a good bond. And then I took a popsicle stick and I'm just applying it where I'm rubbing it up against that metal black rod that goes up into it, and just rubbing it all over to make sure everything's nice and sealed. And I try to do it as nice and clean as I possibly could. Then we're going to take one of these ping pong balls. I thought this was the funniest thing to put on here, but you know what? Sometimes the most random things can turn out to be so beautiful and look like the real thing. So I just did a little snip. It's really easy to cut. Do a little circle, doesn't have to be perfect. And you're doing this so that it'll lay flat on top of that can lid top. And you're going to add some more of this E6000 all over the ping pong ball, and you're just going to nicely snug that right on there. And you can add a little hot glue once again to make sure it holds in place while it dries. Now here is the next thing. You could make this birdcage as tall as you want. You can do 2 tiers, 3 tiers, 4 tiers, however you want. And the more you play with it, it's just so cool to do different heights and stack them all up on a table. This inspiration also came from Antique Farmhouse, a store I love. These were $34 for a set of 2 of them. We're going to do ours way more affordable and a fraction of the cost. Now here's the thing. I actually, as I was making this, decided to custom mine a little bit more. I decided to do more of a wood look around them versus the concrete look, but you definitely could do the concrete look if you decide to just paint these boxes that I'm about to make and show you. So you can see here that I got my measurements based off of what my inspiration was. I'm going to go ahead and just use some foam core, trace it right on there, cut it down to size, and now I'm going to start gluing my box together. I put the sides on first with a bead of glue, and then I come back in the corner and I add on some extra glue to strengthen the inner part of the box. Now you can see at this point you definitely could, just paint it and get that look, but I wanted to have more of a farmhouse look versus a modern look to my little planter box. Now this is something I always recommend. I always build my sides out and then I add glue and then put that box down onto the foam core, so that way you have a perfect box on the bottom and it's the right size and you don't have anything wonky at the bottom. So I'm now going to just take my craft knife, once I've got that glued in place, go ahead and cut it out, and you've got yourself a completed box that cost, I don't know, pennies at this point, because I didn't use the full board. So you can definitely get a ton of planters out of one piece of foam core and do these as like a centerpiece at a party, a reception. Now I'm going to take my foam square from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut it down to size and just glue that into place. Now this is where mine starts to be different from what the inspiration was. I decided to use a pack of popsicle sticks to show you that yes, you could paint it the color and get that concrete look, but I'm going to use popsicle sticks to show you that you could also do a very pretty wood shiplap look on this box. So I'm just taking my popsicle sticks, cutting them down to the sizes that I need, and I'm just going to keep layering them. On the sides I did a straight line, but on the front and the back I went ahead and altered the pattern to make it look more like shiplap or a hardwood floor maybe. I don't know. I just really liked alternating the pattern that was on it. It really made it look pretty and, I don't know, a higher end look. Now I'm going to take some white paint, dry brush that on, take some brown paint, dry brush that on, and once that was off to the side and drying, I took my greenery picks that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to be using 3. I've got this one that kind of looks more like, not celery, maybe cilantro. I don't know, but I really did love this pick. I thought it was so pretty. And then you can see over to the left I've got the white floral with the green, and then I brought in a really big leaf you'll see at the end of this segment right here. So I'm just cutting everything off of the actual pick stem. I like doing that because I feel like you have more control and it looks more natural to cut them apart and then put them in where you want. And then once I had them all positioned, I went ahead and took some twine, wrapped it around a few times, and then tied a knot and added a bow. I love how mine turned out. Again, you definitely could paint yours gray and get that same look, but I wanted you to see, look at how much I saved. And if you have some of these florals already on hand, it would cost even less, but I put $5.50 because I kind of counted everything that you would need if you went to the store right now to buy it. Our next project is something I am so excited to share because I have not seen anybody make these. This was an idea I came up with when I was roaming around the Dollar Tree one day. I saw these cutting mats and thought I could turn this in to a really cool thing. So I'm going to tell you what it is at the end. Hang in there so you can see all the steps first. We are going to take some paper. I'm just using an old dictionary that I'm constantly using, that I'm ripping pages out to either DIY with or using it to paint on top, and I'm going to make a little pattern. So I glued 4 pieces together, and then I made 2 X's at the center point, drew a line up on the side, curved up at the top, and then I ended up folding it in half and cutting along that line. This is often how I make a lot of my patterns, and I get things to be even on both sides. Once I got it to the point that I liked it and how it looked the right size, I went ahead and took my Sharpie marker because it worked best on these cutting mats. There's 2 in a pack, by the way, so it only cost $1 to make this thing. Just wait, you're going to be super excited when you see this one because these sell for so much. I can't believe that we can make this for just $1, and it's super easy to do. Go ahead and take your scissors and cut right on that line. Don't worry about having a little bit of that black showing from your Sharpie marker because we're going to be painting it anyway. So once you've got that part cut out, you're then going to take the second piece, and we want to create an opening, like a pocket that's kind of pushing out, because I wonder if you guys can all guess it by this point, because we are going to be turning this into a really cute wall hanging flower container, and you'll see in just a second what kind it is. So at this point I'm gonna bring it out over 1 inch on each side, even closer to about 1.5 inches, where I want to be able to have it make a big enough opening when I curve it, because you want it to be curved. So go ahead and cut that all out. You can see here that I measured it out just like I showed, and you've got your 2 pieces. Now at this point you're going to pull out your stapler, just a regular old stapler that you keep in your house, in your office area, and you are going to staple all the way along that whole edge. If one of the staples doesn't go all the way through, all you have to do is just push it down on the other sides, and then just go all along a straight line and staple all the way through. If you have any hangover, just cut that off. Then you're going to fold back the plastic to create a crease line so it has a nice rounded edge. Bring it over to the other side, staple the top and the bottom so that you can get it positioned right, and then staple all the way across again. Are you all starting to see what I'm making here? Now you're going to go ahead and fold back the plastic on the other side. You want to really make sure you crease that so it creates that dome feeling where you can put the flowers down inside or whatever you want to display inside of it. So here I am where I've got my front and my back figured out. Now we have to do the bottom. Now you're going to take that piece where you cut out the second piece that's curved on the top, and you're going to just find the spot that has the extra that you need to be able to create a bottom for your flower container, and you are going to just trace around it, create enough of a line and cut past it a little bit because you want to have a little overhang. We're going to trim off once it's all done drying. So you're going to take some E6000 and a little bit of hot glue to hold it in place short term and long term, and you're going to just put it to the side to let it dry. I let mine dry for about 6 hours, and then it was good for me to go ahead and start trimming up any extra, and then if anything were to pull back, you can just add a little bit more of the E6000 as you like. So here I am where I've let it dry, and I'm trimming off the extra so it has a nice seal at the bottom, and then like I said, if anything lifts, all you got to do is just add a little bit more, but mine held really well and I was able to cut away that extra. Then once you spray paint it, you can go ahead and start adding some different tints of gray, and you're going to see here that I'm coming in first with a medium type gray, not too dark, not too light, and I'm just patting it all around because we want to give it that corrugated metal look, and we're going to just keep adding it in. So I'm blotting it on first with my paintbrush, and then I'm coming back in with a napkin, and I just keep tapping it, tapping it, tapping it. So I'm doing all of one color gray first, tapping it all in. I set it aside because I'm doing 2 of them for today. I'm setting aside, letting it dry, and then I'll come back in with an even lighter one, and you just keep playing with it until you get that look that you're going for. So you don't have to go all the way down inside, and you definitely do not have to do the backside because it's going to be hanging on a wall or however you display it. You could if you want to. And then I went in with a really light color, really light gray, and then an even lighter white, and I just keep tapping it on until it looks like that metal-y look that these flower containers would normally look like. Isn't this so crazy? At this point, each one of these only cost me $1 to make. So here I am, I just keep playing with it and having fun. And I want you to keep in mind, you can make whatever shape you want. You can make them longer and skinny. You can make them just whatever length or height or width you want them to be. Then once you've got it all dried, you can go ahead and add in some of those form squares from the Dollar Tree, and then add in some florals of your liking. I went very neutral because I want to keep these up all year long. I have a place in my basement I think I'm going to put them, so I wanted to make sure that they were long term. And I added in some boxwood stems off of a long garland that I have from Hobby Lobby. I'm always cutting it apart. I paid 10 bucks for that long garland. It was the best investment. You can see there on the back side that the foam squares were there. I didn't spray paint the back of it because again, nobody's going to see it, but if you wanted to spray paint it, you totally could. So just keep playing with your floor arrangement until you get it to a place where you really like it and it looks really pretty to you. And again, have fun with this part. Use whatever florals you want. You don't have to do it like me. Now this is an important part if you decide to put a little tag on the front, just like I did. I decided to cut a little flap open, and then I added some hot glue down inside of it, so that way the foam stays in there permanently. I pushed the flap back, and then I added some more hot glue and added a cute little tag to the front. I think that the tag being on this makes this even more high-end. Again, something that you would see from Magnolia Home. I just love these so much. Now on the back side, you're going to want to make sure you cut a hole as well so that you're able to hang it up anywhere in your home. And I just think they're so cute with two of these paired together on a wall. The Dollar Tree started carrying these beautiful glass jars. I love the pattern and texture on them so much. Now, funny enough, you're going to see me working with 3 here. After I ended up painting all 3 of them white, I gave them a nice coat of white paint. One of them fell off of my table and shattered all over my floor. I was so sad because I wanted to do something different with this than what I ended up with, but either way, I just wanted you all to see that when you paint it and then sand off the paint at the raised surface, it makes the most beautiful look to these. They look like milk glass, and they're so perfect for farmhouse decor, and you can honestly organize whatever you want inside of them. They are just so beautiful, and I spray painted the lids black as well. These are the supplies we're going to be using: 1 pack of long barbecue skewer sticks and 2 grass hula skirts from the Dollar Tree. We're going to take 3 foam squares from the Dollar Tree and glue them together as well. This is going to become our support system to be able to hold up our long skewer sticks. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a cut line where I know that I want all of them to be the same height, and then I'm going to use some pliers to just cut them and break them all apart. And we're going to need quite a few of these. I'm not going to give the exact number because I want you to be able to make the size you want. You can either do it really big or really small. It's depending on whatever size you want, and the possibilities of these baskets are endless. So you can see here that I am using 1 skewer stick and I'm getting 2 out of it because I'm cutting them down to size. And then what I did was I put my 2 longest ones out to the side, and then I'm filling them in. So I have 2 long ones out to the side. They're kind of tilted out. 2 in the middle, and then there's 4 in between each of those joints. And then as you see from the top view, it creates an oval shape. That way we can create an envelope basket. Now we're going to take our hula skirt, and you can see that I'm just sliding these little knotted long pieces of raffia, or I guess hula skirt grass that they want to say it is. We need 6 of them, and so I'm just taking them, unwrapping them, and then I'm just gonna lay them all nice and flat so I can gather together 6, because every time you have 6, you're going to be able to weave them onto our skewer sticks. So right now, to start, I twisted it really tight just to make sure I had a nice knot to begin. I'm going to just knot that right around on one of the spots. And then once I've got that there, I'm going to go ahead and just start going in and out, in and out, in and out, all the way around the skewer sticks. Come up at the top, it's the easiest way to do it. I like to hold my finger down there at the bottom as I'm trying to weave back and forth, so that way things don't pop off. In the beginning, it is a little bit tricky getting it started just because the skewer sticks are not glued in. You do not want to glue them in, because when we're done, we're going to pull them off, and I'm going to show you that step on how to finish the bottom side of your basket. But right now we're just doing the weaving part. So you can see here that I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And as you're going, you're going to start noticing that there's going to be a pattern. You want to be on one side of the stick, and then the next side when you pass it around the second loop, when you come all the way around the track. So at the end of your raffia, your long, I guess, hula skirt grass, you're going to want to make sure you're always tying back on the next section. So you can see here that I took the end that I was weaving with, and then I took 6 more, and I just tied a simple knot, made sure it was nice and tight enough, not too tight. You don't want a really obvious knot, but tight enough to hold it in place. And then I cut off the extra, and then as you're weaving it, those knots should just naturally fall on the inside when you're weaving it. Just make sure you're securing it towards the inside of the basket so you don't see the knots on the outside. And I just keep playing with this. This project was really fun, and surprisingly, it only took me, I'm going to say, probably about 40 minutes to do this. It really wasn't bad at all. I actually had something on I was watching on the Hallmark channel, since Hallmark's doing all their Christmas movies right now. So I thought, oh, I'll just watch a movie while I'm doing this. And it went really quick, and I was so impressed that I was able to make a basket out of just hula skirts and shish kebab sticks. Not shish kebab sticks. I always want to call them that. You all know that if you've been here for a while. Skewer sticks. So here I am. I'm just going to continue to create this pattern over and over again until I get to a height that I like. And at this point, just so you can see the details, this is what it looks like. It looks exactly like a basket, friends. Exactly. Can you believe this? Out of a grass skirt and some skewer sticks. Now at this point, you can see that I have decided to stop. I really like the look of my basket right at this point, and I'm taking some hot glue, and this is how we're going to finish off the top to look really nice and polished. We're taking some hot glue and sticking it underneath the grass that we've weaved on, and we are going to just glue it all into place onto the sticks. This is going to create it to be nice and strong without anything falling off and having any issues. And you notice that I did that top part before I pulled off the bottom, because I want to make sure it's nice and secure and in place. Then at the bottom, you're going to just pull back what you have weaved onto those sticks. Pull the sticks out gently from the foam, and then repeat the process as well at the bottom, making sure you're gluing everything into place so everything is nice and snug. I didn't go crazy with the glue. I just put a couple little dots and make sure I push things down so that they would all hold into place. And then once that was all secure, I could go in and I could cut off the rest of the sticks. I also forgot to mention, when I went around that space with the sticks one last time weaving, I made sure I tied a knot, and then I cut off the extra of that raffia grass so that way it was nice and finished, and then I tucked the knot down in and glued that into place. Now that everything has been secure and it's over to the side, we're going to work on braiding some of this long raffia grass. I just took a knot, tied it at the top of several pieces of it, and When you're making your basket, I used about 1.5 grass skirts to make the basket part, and then this over here was what was left over. I used about 1/4 of the leftover of the grass skirt to be able to create this braided piece that we're going to be using at the bottom and for a hang-up handle for our basket. So once I braided all the way down, I tied a knot on the other side. And now we're at the bottom of the basket. We're gonna pinch it closed. So you can see here that I'm adding hot glue, and then I'm using my pliers to just pinch it down in there nice and tight. I want it to be nice and secure. Once I went all the way around and I glued all of that into place, I was able to then go on with my braided rope that I just did, that you saw me do. And now we're just going to glue that around the bottom to make it have a really nice finish, and this is going to make it look like you weaved it at the bottom, having this braided rope here. Okay, at this point I wanted to give it that cute farmhouse look, because y'all know I love that. I'm taking some gingham fabric and I'm just cutting it down to size and wrapping it over the top. Now at this point I'm going to take that extra piece of that braid that we used towards the bottom, and I'm going to put it on the back. You could see there for a second I was thinking about maybe adding a darker rope to it, and then no, I still decided to stick with this lighter grass raffia. I really liked the way that it looked. And then I just tied another knot where I cut it off the extra from the bottom, and now I'm gluing it onto the back with a lot of glue. I want to make sure it's on there nice and secure, so this is going to be hanging up somewhere in my home. I think I'm going to hang it on the island in my kitchen. You'll most likely be seeing this in a home decor real soon. So then once I glued on that back part, and I also disguised it with an extra piece of fabric so it looks really polished, I took this round piece of foam that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I put it down inside the basket because I wanted it to stay open and nice and chubby looking. We're going to use the word chubby, but I wanted it to look, you know, full. So now at this point I'm just taking some eucalyptus that I found really cheap during all of these sales they've been having, some hydrangea, and then some of the cotton stems from the Dollar Tree. Now we can stop here or add a little something extra, which you all know I love to do. I'm taking one of these little garden tags that they were selling at springtime. I popped off the back, added lots of hot glue, and just put that right on the front of my basket. For this DIY, we're going to be using 2 of these white wire Dollar Tree baskets, 1 of these wood pallets that you can get in the craft section, and then I have this stair railing that I had left over from another project that I picked up at a repurposing store. I started by drilling a hole in the bottom, that way I could bring in 2 screws to make sure it's tightened nice to that wood pallet. Then I'm going to take my wire cutters and cut out 2 circles. They're kind of almost in the shape of an oval just because of the way the wire is in the bottom of these 2 baskets. And then I'm going to come in with my drill again, and I'm going to drill a hole one way, and then I'm going to drill a hole the other way. That way, so there's this cross hole that's going through both sides of the bottom of this stair railing. And that's because we're going to run in 2 zip ties going in those opposite directions. And then we're going to bring back in that wire basket. It's simply going to be able to slide right down into place. And then I'm going to take those zip ties, I'm going to bring them up into the wire basket, and then I'm going to zip tie that basket right onto my wood railing, and it's going to hold nice and firm with these 2 crossed zip ties. Then I'm going to repeat that same process for the top basket. And then I'm going to bring that right down, find the spacing that I want between the 2 baskets, mark it, and then go ahead and drill my holes, doing the same thing, going one direction and then the other direction. Once I've got my 2 holes, I went back in with the wire and the zip ties and nicely tightened everything into place. You can see here that they're not going anywhere because the zip ties are pulled extremely tight. Then up at the top I wanted to add a knob. I thought this would be really cute, so I drilled a hole at the top of the wood railing, took one of these dowel sticks, And then these wooden balls, I actually picked these up from Hobby Lobby with a 40% off coupon. And then I'm just going to go ahead and glue that all into place so it doesn't pop off if it gets bumped or dropped. It'll stay nice and tight and secure on top of the railing. Then I made sure I gave everything a nice coat of white paint. Then I took 2 of my favorite gardening tags that you guys know I use here all the time on my channel. I added some hot glue, flipped it over, added more hot glue on the back to make sure it's all locked into place. And then to give it that enamel metal look, I'm taking some black paint and going around the top of the basket. Now we could leave it as is, but I wanted to make the bottom look more farmhouse and add in some boxwood. So I glued on some foam squares left over from the first project, and then I'm just adding in that greenery as much as I like, and you're ready to use. For this DIY, we're going to be using some of these wood square planks, painter sticks, and then 7 of these long signs that you can get all year round at the Dollar Tree. They always use this sign for each holiday and season. So I'm going to start by just popping off that front 3D popped out holiday tag, and then the ribbon and the staples off the back. Then I'm going to take 3 of them, bring them together where they're all lined up perfectly, and then glue down some long painter sticks, and this is going to allow the box to become stronger and stronger. So I'm also going to be cutting down a few pieces so that I can put them on the sides of the box, and I'll show that in just a second. But you can see here that once I've got things glued down, I'm stapling everything together. So we've got those joints in the middle and then on the very ends, and that's where the side of the box are going to start coming together. And the ones that I cut down, you can see here, I put them towards the top of 2 of the long ones, 2 of these long signs, and those are going to go on opposite sides. And then right now I have those last 2 signs. I'm going to be measuring how long I want it to be able to customize the top and the bottom of our Apothecary drawer DIY. So I'm just scoring along this line once I had exactly where I wanted to cut, and then these snap really easy once you score it a couple of times on each side, and I'm just going back and forth to make sure I have a nice clean break. Then I'm going to start gluing on all of the sides. I make sure that when I put on the glue it's a nice thick amount, and then I'm lining everything up because you really do get one shot at this. So I'm making sure I'm lining everything up and pressing also in the middle to make sure if there's no bowing in the sign. Then I'm going to bring on the top and the bottom, and you can see where I cut down those wood sticks earlier, so that way I have a joint to be able to bring up the sides of the box. At this point the box has been completely built. It's really strong using all the reinforcement painter sticks, and now I'm gluing on all of my wood plank squares. I wanted to dress up this box a little bit to give it some decorative mold trimming, and so I'm using some of these long wood dowel sticks from the Dollar Tree as well, cutting them down to size where I need them to be with some wire cutters. And then up at the top I took a long popsicle stick. It wasn't long enough to reach all the way across, so I ended up having 2 pieces and I just brought them together. Now originally I did put some staples on the front of it and realized it was so strong at this point that I actually could take them back off, so I did. Gave it a nice coat of white paint, and now I'm coming in and distressing the box. This part really is up to you and how much you want to distress it, or if you want to do a different color, but I decided to go a little bit heavier around the box squares to make it look like they're old, beat up looking drawers, because I really love how vintagey this is starting to look. And now I'm coming back in with some of these metal tags, and then I'm using a small eyeglass screw to be able to put in these screws. Just because they're so tiny, I thought that this would be the best option, but I made sure I drilled my holes first so that way I didn't struggle with trying to get through that wood. Then I'm adding on some handles and some knobs. I ended up doing little handles and knobs because I didn't want to use all of my knobs. These were actually a little more expensive than what I wanted to commit to put all on one project. So I kind of mixed them up and I went back and forth between these little handles and knobs. I will link everything I used for this hardware down below in my description box. And then at the very end, I just came up at the top and I painted on something cute which says Vintage Market Company. I went online to Amazon and I found this pack of 100 round wooden clothespins. I love home decor that is out of the box thinking, and it just looks so cute on a decor shelf or placed in certain areas around your home. And I'm going to be using 7 of them, but you really could cluster together as many as you would like. Now, my inspiration came from a boutique. I saw these in a boutique and they charged so much for them, which again, friends, this is the easiest DIY and you get this really rustic farmhouse chic look for pennies. So I'm going to just hot glue them into place, the 7 of them, and then I'm going to take some twine, wrap it around about 4 or 5 times until I get the thickness I want, and then I'm going to go ahead and just simply tie a knot. Now, you could stain these, but I'm going to be doing a whitewash on mine. I decided that I liked that look more than staining them darker. I use a lot more white in my home, so I'm going to just take my paintbrush and very ever so lightly just tap little bits of white paint around the twine, and then I'm going to come on and very lightly add on some white paint at the ends, the tops, things where paint would naturally get on them, or just if your hands were kind of dirty or whatever over time, that it would just kind of pick up that on that surface. And if I had too much of it, I went ahead and came back in with my sanding block and I just sanded off the extra from it. Now the cool thing about these is that you can place them in a bowl, you can put them in a large mason jar. It really just adds the coolest home decor look to a shelf, to a table, and it's so beautiful and easy to recreate. I'm going to take these really darling mini candle stem holders. I think that's what they are. I'm going to link the product down below. This little birdhouse, again, I'll link it down below where I can. And then these popsicle sticks I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Start by cutting off any ribbon that might be at the top of these mini birdhouses. I love this one because it had a little heart. And then I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to put it on 2 sides of this little mini candlestick holder, and I'm going to then take some hot glue on the other 2 sides. This is to make sure that it really holds in place nicely over time and it doesn't break off very easily. The hot glue dries much quicker than the E6000 to hold it in place, and when the E6000 dries, then it's really held in place nicely. And then I'm going to take some white paint. And you can do this with any color for Valentine's Day. You could do a pink or red, it's up to you. But I'm gonna go with white because I just love the look of white in my home. And once I've got it all painted, I'm then gonna take these popsicle sticks. I think you can do so many amazing things with popsicle sticks. I really love the look of them on craft projects because it gives you that wood element and you can get it for such a cheap price. Go ahead and cut it down to size, and then just line them up so you know what size you need on the other ones, and then with some scissors just snip off those pieces. Then I'm going to create some wood shingles on top of this little birdhouse, and it really elevates the look versus it just being, you know, a traditional little birdhouse that you would see at a craft store. I love doing this to these little houses because you can really customize them and make them look so cute and special for your home decor. Once you've got one side done, you're going to go ahead and just do the other side as well. Once again, trace the pieces that you need, snip off the ends. Cutting them cracks me up because these things kind of shoot off everywhere, so just be aware of that when you're doing this project. You could cut them into like a towel or a cloth of some kind so they don't shoot off all over the place. And then once you've got those all glued in place, to finish off the top of the roof line, you're going to take two more thin pieces. You're going to cut them down to size and put them on opposite side to create a really nice finish on top of your roof. When you've got those glued into place and they look nice and finished, you'll get to move on to either leaving the wood raw, or you could paint it or stain it or whatever. Now look at how nice and finished the top of it is. So you just put some hot glue and then put two of them butted up to each other going the opposite direction. Once you've got those all in place, I took some black and brown paint. I used the majority of brown paint with a little dot of black just to darken it up some, to give it more of a farmhouse finish stain versus it just being brown. I like to add just a little bit of black, tiny little dot, and then I'm using some water to make it into like a whitewash type of a stain. So instead of having to, go out and buy actual stain, this is my best way that I get around doing it. And so many of you have given so many great tips on how to create a stain look with paint. This is my personal favorite way to do it because it's super cheap and cost efficient. And then I just take a small brush and I just go over all of the popsicle sticks, making sure I don't miss a spot. See how pretty it is when you use the black and the brown mixed combo together? It just looks so nice. Now we're going to be taking some painter sticks and we are going to move on to the next DIY. I'm using 3 packs of the smaller painter sticks that you can get from your home improvement store, and each one has 10 inside of it. We won't be needing all of them, but we're going to get close to using all of them. So first what we're going to do is we are going to lay out our painter sticks the length of an actual painter stick. And you're going to want to make sure you have them all facing the same direction so that you can cover up those little handles where you can see them divoting in. We don't want that to be seen because what we're doing right now is we're going to be creating we're going to call it a barn door. That's what we're going to go with. A really cute barn door. And we're going to do 2 sides just like you saw me do there. And now we're going to glue them together in the middle. So we're going to take a lot of hot glue at this point and we're going to just give a nice coating on it. And then we're going to take another painter stick and we're going to lay that right on it to make sure it has a nice support system in the middle so it doesn't have any problems. Once it's dry, you can go ahead and flip it over. You can see that I put a popsicle stick under, I said popsicle stick, painter stick. I use so many wood sticks here on my channel, sometimes I do that. But you can see that I put one underneath it to create a little support system underneath it so it could lay flat. And then on the front, like you saw there, I put 2 at an angle to create a Z zigzag look on it. And now I'm going to use my staple gun and I'm just going to staple on the back side anywhere where there's a connecting point so that way it's really strong and sturdy. At this point it should be all strong with the staples and the hot glue, and you can go ahead and add whatever color you want to it. You could do red, which could be really pretty where it's got that pretty barn door look. I'm going to go with white because, well, I like white and I think you all know that. So I'm going to add on a pretty coat of white paint, and I do go in a little bit later and distress it. I forgot to film that part, but basically paint it whatever color you want. Now at this point I'm going to use this ribbon. I picked this really thick ribbon up after all of the Christmas sales were going on at the end of Christmas last year. I highly recommend when Christmas is done, go to your craft stores and buy this ribbon. You can get tons of it for so cheap. I think I ended up spending like $3 for this huge roll of this beautiful, beautiful burlappy type ribbon. And then I just took 2 really long strands of it And I'm now going to take some eucalyptus. I also picked this up right now while they have all of their spring florals, just basically giving it away for free. I ended up buying this for, I think it was like $1.30 for this eucalyptus stem, and they were originally almost $13. I could not believe how cheap I was getting these. So right now is a good time to go and check out the florals. And then this really cute cotton stem actually came from the Dollar Tree, friends. This is a new product the Dollar Tree is carrying. I love these things so much. I've picked up a whole bunch of them, so you'll be seeing them here a lot. Run to your stores, see if you can find them because they're so pretty and high quality. And then I simply am just taking the 2 ribbons that I put underneath it. I did a simple loop over. I didn't even knot it. I just looped it over and then brought them down and glued things in place. And now I'm just kind of playing with it, adding in a little bit more eucalyptus, maybe another cotton stem, maybe some of the little greenery that comes off of the eucalyptus, and just playing with it until I feel happy with the look. Then at the end, go ahead and trim the ribbon and display. I found this darling little house box and I thought this would be so cute to hold all of my cooking utensils. So I'm going to go ahead and sand down some of these raised up elements that I don't want to be on here. Once I've got that all smoothed out, I'm going to go ahead and take off the handle, and then I took it and painted it white. I gave it a couple of coats of white paint to make sure that it was nice and crisp. And then I went ahead and popped the handle back onto the little house. At this point, it was ready to be decorated. Now you can go back on and add on little windows with popsicle sticks, whatever you want. But I thought, how cute would it be if I just put a nice big S on there for a monogram for our family's name? And it just is going to look so cute. So you can see here that I'm roughing it up just a little bit. And then I'm going to come back in with my pencil and I'm going to sketch on an S for Sonboul. And then I'm going to also come in and create a wreath that's circling around the bottom and the top of the S. Now these type of containers are all over thrift stores. People are always getting rid of these because they're just outdated and they don't know what to do with them, and they just get rid of them. So I thought, how cute would it be to give it some new life by just simply giving it a fresh coat of white paint and then putting something new and fresh and farmhouse friendly on it. So I'm going to go ahead and just come back in with some black paint. You know that I love to hand paint letters because I just feel like it's so cost efficient and it's really honestly therapeutic. Now before I went ahead and added in the rest, I made sure I was drying along the way so that I didn't accidentally smudge something. And then I'm going to come in and start working on my S. Now I will say, I get asked all the time, having a Cricut is really awesome. I do have one and I do love it. And I also have a Silhouette. I love them both. They both have great value. But I also will say, you don't have to have one of those machines to be able to get this look. Yes, it is way faster. But again, if you're looking for something that's therapeutic and relaxing, this definitely will hit the spot. So don't be afraid to use your hand and to hand paint. I always sketch out everything first and then I just take my time, put on some music and relax. Now I'm going to come back in with some gray paint and I'm going to just lightly dry brush around the sides and over the S and that wreath that we just made. And remember, you can dry brush with whatever color you would like. Take off some if it's too much in some areas with a wipey and then go back in and add what you want. My inspiration for this next look for less came from Antique Farmhouse. I loved these beautiful wall geometric art pieces, but I did not want to pay the price. So I found some of these mirrored frames at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be actually only using 3 of them, but I'm showing that I was able to find 4. And you're going to go ahead and remove the packaging and then remove the screws from the back side. There are, I think, 8 screws on this, and I just used a little tiny eyeglass kit screw remover to be able to take all those screws out. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it white, and you can see that we're going to be using some of these jumbo tongue depressor sticks that I pick up from the Dollar Tree. I need 8 of them, as well as some shish kebab sticks. Now I'm going to be cutting them down to size because we want to make a little bit of a stronger base for our larger tongue depressor sticks to be able to bond to. So we're adding these shish kebab sticks in here to be able to really give a bigger base for our wood to go around it. You can see that I cut it down to size and I'm gluing it to the part where the screws used to go into. Once those were all in place, I went ahead and cut off the rounded tips of the larger tongue depressor sticks, and now I'm just going to bring the corners together. I'm going to do 2 like that, and then I'm going to have 2 be a little bit longer because you want to be able to make sure that everything is nice and strong and secure, especially if you're going to be displaying it in your home. I really do try to find ways to make things look really high end without them looking like we made things from the Dollar Tree. Then you can see that I'm starting to put them on the corners, and with a lot of hot glue, I'm making sure that things are gluing really well. But before I glue this longer piece down where I hadn't cut down the sides, I wanted to make sure I got the sizing right. Now I'm going to add on all of the glue. I'm going to come into those corners and then onto those shish kebab sticks that we had earlier, and you can see here that it's really giving it a bigger surface to be able to bond to the frame. Then just make sure you push down really hard, wipe off any of that extra glue that might be pushing out from it, and then once it's all dry, you're going to flip it over, and then I'm using brown paint, a little bit of black paint, and some water to create a stain, and I'm just going to go along the edge. And you could technically use painter sticks that are longer so you don't have all these seams, but I promise you the finished look looks so farmhouse, so cute. It looks very rustic in my personal opinion, so I just went with these tongue depressor sticks because I knew I could get the look and look really beautiful at the same time. So I'm coming in with my faux stain, and I'm just going to go over all of those sticks, making sure I'm not getting any on the white frame itself. And then I'm also going to do the back side just so when people turn it over, it looks finished on the back side. I always like to make sure both sides look good. And then once that was all dry, I came back in with some white paint and dry brushed on some white paint. And this is the part where I said it's going to look so farmhouse that you won't even notice those sticks, and we're saving tons of money doing it this way. And now I'm going to come in with some brown, and I'm going to dry brush on the white spray paint. And can you believe it? Look at this savings. I ended up spending about $2 on each frame. I wouldn't even say that. I would say I probably spent about $1.25 on each frame. This inspiration I thought was so cute. I love the idea of using a little carton of eggs in my kitchen. I thought it would be really cute decor, or even throughout the whole year. There's so many different ways you can style this. So I am taking 3 canvases from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take off the canvas. I like to keep the biggest part because I use that for other DIYs, banners and things like that. And then I'm going to just strip everything down to the frame itself and stack up 3 with some hot glue. Then I'm going to take these larger tongue depressor sticks that you can get from Walmart, and I'm going to cut them down because this is going to go on the bottom of our little egg crate. And I'm just going to put down some hot glue, and this is going to hold it really well in place. You could add some wood glue, but I've found that the hot glue does really well because these are both really porous pieces, so the hot glue kind of seeps in between these wood cracks. Then I'm going to come back in with those same long tongue depressor sticks, and I'm going to just cut them down to size to create the lining for the eggs to be able to sit in each one. So I've got 2 long ones, and then I've got 3 shorter ones in between each row. I'm just simply measuring them, cutting them down to size, and I'm not going all the way down to the very bottom just because they're not long enough with the depth of how big it is. So I'm just cutting them down until they fit. Then I'm going to take some of these eggs that I had left over from Easter. I'm going to put them on some shish kebab sticks, and I'm going to take them outside and spray paint them all an ivory white color. And my crate, I spray painted it a white color. Now I'm bringing in my stain that I like to make, which is the little bit of black, some brown, and some water. I mix all together, and I'm going to use that to distress it to give it more of a natural look that it's been sitting around for a long time, getting old and weathered. And then I'm going to take some of this mossy grass that you can get from the Dollar Tree and stuff that into all of my crate little openings for those eggs. After that, I'm going to put in my eggs, and it looks so much like the inspiration. I was so excited how this turned out and thought of all the really cute ways that I can decorate with this throughout my home, and I saved a ton of money making this myself. This inspiration came from Antique Farmhouse. I love these crates, but I would not pay $89 for them. So we're going to use some supplies from the Dollar Tree, 2 of these chalkboard frames, and then 10 of these painter sticks that you can get from a home improvement store. And then we're going to simply start by putting 3 on the shorter side of the chalkboard frames. I put some hot glue down first, and then I used my staple gun and stapled it into place. So you can see I've got 3 on each of the shorter sides, and then on the bottom side I've got 4 more. So at this point it's created this cute, darling little crate, and completely on budget for a little bit under $3. Now I'm going to take some black paint, brown paint, and water, mix it all together to create a faux stain. And now I'm going to just simply paint that right onto the box itself, and it absorbs in, still showing the wood grain, and looks so much like the inspiration. Then I'm going to come in with some white paint and dry brush on it to distress it a little bit and make it look more rustic farmhouse, and then sand where I've got too much. And here it is, the inspiration versus mine, where I've saved a ton of money. Our next project are going to be upcycling these thrifted baskets that I got half off, so I paid $1 for each one. And the reason why I wanted to show these is that when you paint something with a simple color like white, it has a whole new personality. Now these baskets, whoever previously owned them, painted it red on the inside and black on the outside, which is not really my thing. So I'm going to lighten them up, but still leave some of the black. Now red is a really tricky thing. It can be very porous, and so I had to paint the inside of the basket 5 times white. When you have something like that bleeding through, make sure that each layer dries really, really well, because it seals it inside that paint. When you add the next color, it'll allow the next layer of paint to not keep bleeding through. So that's the trick when you're painting something that's red. That's how much that thing had red paint absorbed into it, because I had to paint it 5 times. I usually don't have to paint it that much, but this time I did. For the outside, I avoided painting the 2 rings around the baskets because I just loved how it looked. I felt like it had a very Magnolia home look to it, and I just thought it was so pretty. So here's the cool thing about these baskets. You can store all kinds of goodies inside of it. You can put it in your pantry with potatoes and onions. You can put it inside inside a cabinet or on a shelf, and they just style so cute. So anytime you see these baskets, pick them up, give them some paint, and you will be so surprised. These are the supplies we're going to be using for this DIY today. 2 of the signs from the Dollar Tree, some chalk paint that I got from Joann's with a coupon, and then 3 of the packs of long painter sticks from Home Depot. There are 3 in a pack. We're going to need 9 of them, so that'll be $3 for those painter sticks. Now we're going to remove the tags, push the boards up to each other, just as you see me doing here, and we are going to measure out our painter sticks where we need to cut on those lines. We're going to have 2 shorter ones that are going to be going vertical, and then we're going to have 2 longer ones that are going the length of the board that are going to be going horizontal. So we need 2 and 2 of these to be able to create a frame around these 2 signs. I love these kind of projects because you can take a whole lot of nothing and turn it into something really special. We're going to be making a command center where we have a chalkboard, a place to hang up our keys, and place our mail. So you can see here that I used my hacksaw and my miter box. I'm going to link that down below. It is an Amazon affiliate link, and I do get a small commission if you decide to purchase it through that link. And I appreciate it. Anyone who has ever done that, it means so much to me. But I'll link it down below if you are interested in the one that I have. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just start gluing them on, and you can see that I glued down the top piece first, and then I'm doing the sides, because if you see right there where those spots are ripped up, I tried to do the top and the bottom first, not realizing that it would be better to do the sides, and then the sides weren't fitting in right. So make sure you do the top, the sides, and then the bottom. That way so everything fits perfectly around it and you're not trying to shove pieces of wood into their spots. It just makes it so much easier this way. So go ahead and just place all of your sticks down with some hot glue, and then we're going to take another long painter stick, and you can see that I pushed it down into the actual spacing of the wood because this is going to create the mailbox. So I have one that's going the width, and then we're going to have 2 that are shorter. They're going to go the height of it, and then this is going to allow us to be able to create that box for mail to go in. So you can see I added some glue, I'm placing it in place, and then I'm adding on the sides. Now, here is something I learned as I was doing this. A little bit later you're going to see me paint it. Once you get the box framed out, I highly recommend painting the white part of the inside of the box first before you put on the front of the box. That is the one thing that I wish that I had done, and I ended up having to struggle by putting my paintbrush down in there to get everything white. So at this point you should paint everything white and then come back in and paint once you put the crossbars on the front of it. But you can see here I'm using my staple gun. I'll link this down below too. I love using a staple gun on all my crafts. And then on the back side, you're going to see that I'm just kind of getting a measurement of where those pieces are going to be. And I'm just going to take my staple gun and go ahead and staple on those markers just so that I don't go through on the other side, because we want to make sure we're securing that front box where we're going to put our mail. This is really easy. I just used a pencil, just kind of marked it, brought it around on the other side. You could use a ruler if you want to, but I didn't want to pull one out, and so I was kind of being lazy. So basically just mark the spots that you think are going to hit right at that front part where the little box for the mail is, and then just staple it on and just keep checking to make sure you didn't go through. Okay, now at this point, like I said, you should paint at this point, but I ended up putting on the front bars first, and like I said, that was a little bit of a regret because you'll see in a minute that I'm going to struggle painting the inside. Once you've got those on, you can go ahead and staple them down and secure them into place. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move on to the painting, and you're going to see here where I'm having to, like I said, shove my brush down in there to get that area painted. So learn from my mistake on this part, but painting is really fun. I always find this part super therapeutic. I love painting things. I don't know what it is about painting, but it just, I I just love painting. So here I am, I'm taking some white paint and I'm just gonna go over all the wood. You could stain this if you wanted to. That could be really beautiful too. You don't have to just use white. You could use a color, you could stain it. But once you've got that part all done, you're gonna go ahead and take your chalk paint and you're going to go right at that seam line between those two boards, and you're just gonna paint a nice thick layer of chalk paint on so that you can use chalk on this. Now we're going to take these hooks. I picked these up from the Home Depot. They were quite a few of them in a pack, and I think they were like $4. I could be wrong, but it's something right around that price. And then I just marked out where I wanted my hooks to be, and I'm using my drill to pre-drill the holes. It makes it much easier putting in these little hooks. And then you're just going to screw them right in. You could add a little wood glue if you want to keep them in there permanently. That's a great option too. But you're going to go ahead and just screw them all in so they're nice and tight. And if you start having a problem screwing them in, you can always use some pliers. And then I took one of these garden tags. I'm going to scrape off some of the paint so that the bond is really, really nicely put onto the front of this sign. And we're going to just glue it right on. I'm going to show you some hot glue for that. And then I thought it would be really cute if I were to write on there with some paint, or I guess paint on it, the word mail. I just loved the way that that looked. I thought this was so cute. I can't believe how much Pottery Barn sells these things for. You can seriously make them for pennies. At this point, I have spent probably about $6. Now at this point, I'm just adding in hooks at the top. I took those original golden hooks and I closed the opening so it's a rounded closed piece, and I'm screwing them right in so you can hang it up at your back door and put all of your things in it. I hope you felt inspired by this video today. Remember, leave a comment down below. Let me know which one you liked, which one you think you will try, and thanks so much for stopping by. Until the next episode, bye friends.